What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Backash podcast. We are back here today to discuss a lot, so we're not going to waste much time. We're going to get into a release, a couple releases, one from WWE, one from AEW, and then a signing that AEW did as well. We're going to talk about the Backlash PLE that was on Saturday. That was next level in regards to fan participation, to say the least. And then we'll talk a little bit about AEW Dynamite. Their ratings obviously by this point came out, so it's pretty interesting to take a look at that and then just going from there and a look at the week ahead. But as always, thank you guys so much for checking out the show, checking out the pod. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS. You can follow the show on Twitter as well at kickashpodcast_. But yeah, like I said, we're not going to waste much time. The release, to me, wasn't really surprising, just in the sense that we hadn't really heard much. And then with some things that had came out over the past 2-ish years, I believe, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, just didn't really seem promising, unfortunately. And that is the release of Gable Steveson. Officially, the report here, I'm reading it from ProWrestling.net with Jason Powell, so shout out to him. But he states Gable Steveson has been released by WWE. Dave Meltzer of WrestlingObserver.com reports that Stevenson was released from his deal on Friday. And Powell's point of view, just little excerpts that he throws in there as well, or any takes that he has, obviously. He says that Stevenson signed with WWE shortly after he won the gold medal as a heavyweight wrestler in the 2020 Olympics. WWE had very high hopes for Stevenson given his stellar amateur wrestling credentials, but he struggled as an on-air personality during his infrequent appearances. Based on the CageMatch.net match listing, the Olympic gold medalist worked a total of just 17 matches for WWE, and only one was televised. Stevenson's older brother Bobby works in WWE, or I'm sorry, in NXT rather, which is WWE obviously, as Damon Kemp, which I'm actually surprised there was the 17 matches. I didn't even think he had that many. And when you think of over a 4-year span, it's like, why? And I'm sure, obviously, with him, he's not just another athlete coming in, or just like a random guy coming in. You know, he does have name value, and he is what he is. And a gold medal winner obviously is nothing to um assume the worst on in regards to lack of work ethic. You know, it's the exact opposite, right? So that's what makes me wonder what happened, and what was not clicking, or maybe what was it, just like a scheduling thing? Was it outside things that have been going on, some reports? And I don't really think that's the case, you know, because if that were the case, maybe that would have happened when the reports came out. And to be honest, I don't really know much about them, so I'm not going to obviously sit here and chat about it. But yeah, I think it's surprising in the sense that he does have a name to him. You know what I mean? Maybe not as much now as he did in the past, but you always, once you're a gold medal winner, you always have that to go back to, right? And he is obviously a phenomenal athlete to be credentialed at that level. So for them to be willing to let him go says a lot. So I'm very curious to see if he stays in wrestling, or if he just ventures out into whatever he's going to be doing next. And who would have thought that Damon Kemp, you know, the NXT character Damon Kemp that we have been watching, seems to possibly be having a better career in WWE than Stevenson, Gable, that is. So we'll see. And it's still kind of, like I said, surprising to me, that they're willing that they were willing to let him go. So that's why I'm really interested to see if we hear anything else, or if it is what it is, and there's just they're not getting enough out of him for the money that they're investing, or they think that maybe it's not worth the time. But whatever it is, it's just interesting to look back on, because I think they debuted him at a WrestleMania. What Mania would that have been? 37, or yeah, maybe 37. I'm not sure exactly, but I'm and I'm it had to been, doesn't matter the Mania, but I just remember him being on stage with, I believe it was Stephanie and Triple H, for the introduction. But I could be making that up, but I have some memory of that. But yeah, so we'll see what happens next with him, or if anything. But yeah, so that was the only outside of the ring news really with WWE that I saw. There was a report that Cody Rhodes wants to be the highest grossing superstar, you know, pretty much of all time with WWE, which you should, everyone should aspire to be that. And my guy made a milli off of WrestleMania weekend alone, and merch revenue. So I'm sure he's quite on his way there. But with that being said, the news finally broke as well in regards to where WrestleMania is going to be held at, and it is not in Minnesota, which I'm kind of bummed about because I wanted to make the trip out there and have an excuse to visit Mall of America. But that they will also be pushing it back as well, which I'm kind of in favor for. So I won't be complaining about that. But like I said, I am kind of bummed because I wanted an excuse to venture out to Minnesota. Maybe as crazy as that sounds, but the official press release issued today, or I'm sorry, yesterday rather, on Saturday, states that WWE, part of TKO Group Holdings, in conjunction with the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, today announced that Las Vegas will host WrestleMania 41 at Allegiant Stadium on Saturday, April 19th and April 20th, 2025. So 420 will be WrestleMania Sunday, which I just think is fucking hilarious. And I hope they play up the merch. I hope if they don't, they're missing out there. And I didn't even realize it, but that's going to be on Easter Sunday, Easter weekend. So that's interesting as well. And then they just go on to pretty much tout the success for Mania, they say, and of course Las Vegas as well. But I was looking to see if they had any specific numbers for the revenue for Mania of this year. They do reference this past April, WrestleMania 40 became the most successful and highest grossing event in company history, breaking the previous gate record set by WrestleMania 39 by 78%, with 145,298 in attendance over 2 nights at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. WrestleMania delivers more than 200 million in economic impact for host cities, which is just fucking insane. And then they go on to state that the WrestleMania 41 priority passes will soon be available, which is the best way to best way to go rather. I was talking to my friend Josh about it briefly. When I went to Mania 35, if you can do it, if you can plop down the money at one point, they may have payment plan options. I'm not 100% sure on that, but if you're gonna use that as like your vacation of the year and you're planning on spending a decent amount of money with it anyway, normally the priority passes, and I had it was like a travel package type thing. I got it was from Thursday to Monday, and then obviously we checked out on Tuesday, but they covered your hotel, and this was in New York. They covered it right there, and then like Manhattan. They covered the hotel, and it was beautiful, beautiful. They covered the hotel from Thursday to pretty much check out on Tuesday. When you get there, you have your own pretty much escort, right? You have your own path and your own like signage and everything like that. So your own like directions and where to check in, get your passes and things like that. You get your own exclusive merch. You get there was this really cool opportunity to there's like a meet and greet, and they were it was pretty much just it was like a your opinion type thing that they just wanted some fan feedback, and like a select number of fans would be chosen to go back there. It was just like in a conference room type thing in the hotel we were staying at, but I think there was like maybe 20 of us fans who were back there, and then they're like, oh, we have a surprise guest, and it ended up being Mark Henry, which is really cool, and he sat right beside me. I got a picture with him, sat right beside me, and was just talking of the event for that weekend and things like that. But that was really cool because he was in there for like I'm gonna say maybe 20, 30 minutes of his own time. So, and obviously he didn't have to do that, wasn't promoted, anything like that. So those passes, and so I was saying that. So pretty much everything was included except for food. And then you had to buy your transportation there. So if you can do that, and I spent like $1,800, but it includes all of your tickets too. So it's at that point it was Thursday. I forget what we did on Thursday. Was Thursday the Hall of Fame? The Hall of Fame may have been Thursday, but it included the Hall of Fame ceremony, SmackDown, NXT, of course, WrestleMania, which was still one night at that point, and then Monday Night Raw as well. So yeah, so if you can do it, I would recommend just doing the priority pass and doing those bundle deals. Because especially if you want to go to all the shows while you're there, and and then include the fan access as well. I think it was, man, was it 3 days, and we get to choose the 3 days, or maybe it was every day that it was open. I think it was actually every day. But that could vary on which level pass because they have like silver, gold, platinum, and stuff like that. But regardless, check it out because you end up saving a lot of money in the long run. Um, especially with it being in Vegas, I can only imagine what the rates are going to be, and that's why I'm kind of iffy. But if it's I've never really been one that's intrigued on going to Vegas or like it was on a bucket list, but if I can kind of knock out two birds with one stone, going to Vegas and traveling to the West Coast, then why not, So TBD on that on package prices and everything because I'm sure it's probably going to be inflated to say the least. Um, but moving on to Backlash, I'm not going to go down a full breakdown of match by match here, just kind of a few key things that stood out. Obviously, the fans, right? Like the fans and Lyon France were just incredible. It was probably one of the best atmospheres that they've had in for a PLE in top 10, right? Maybe top 10 audience reactions and fan reactions. At some points, I was kind of not wishing, but just kind of like, okay, like let the match like feel itself out and kind of die down a bit, but they were living it up. They were enjoying their show that I think that was the first show that they've ever had over there in France specifically, or at least a PLE, especially of that magnitude, especially with the hype, with how great wrestling has been lately, especially WWE has been on fire. So they were eating it up, and I can't blame them. I'd probably be doing the same thing too. But of course, the way they started off the card itself with the tag team match with Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, of course, Paul Heyman facing off against RKO, RKO, which is Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. First, they loved some Randy Orton. They sang his entire entrance theme, which was so dope to hear. Between that and what they did for Cody Rhodes in the main event, shout out to them. Like they were incredible. But this was a very intense match. I like that they changed it to a street fight, and I really appreciate the beating that Tama Tonga took. This dude, I don't know if it was like an initiation or some type shit, but this dude took a ass beating, especially in the WWE world. So props to him. Take a quick drink. Love some Canada Dry, which is quite funny. When you think about what's going on in the rap world with Kendrick and Drake. So yeah, Canada Dry. Carrying on though, we did get the surprise, and I will say surprise. Tom Tongaloa, excuse me, much the ending of the match had him emerging from. I don't know if he came directly from underneath the ring or if he like ran through the fans and then he just emerged from like kind of looking like he was coming from underneath the ring itself, or if he just kind of like crept on. It was just like hovering below, but doesn't really matter. He was chilling outside the ring, and I think it was with. Let me get it pulled back up here. Yeah, it was of course with Kevin Owens. It definitely would have stood up more if it was with Orton, but going back, Tonga emerged from, we'll just say, underneath the ring and broke up the pin. Sokoa had hit Owens with a Samoa spike and then pinned Owens to win the match. So it wasn't really anything. And shout out again to ProWrestling.net, Jason Powell, for the transcription. He's my go-to. But to me, it was interesting that he didn't really play more of a role in the match itself, which I kind of like. I like that. I like the introduction. I like that the focus was on Solo and Tonga, and then the debut after, like towards the end of the match, it did what it needed to accomplish, right? It introduced him and made him known, and it obviously showed if you're new, if you're just like a strictly WWE audience, right, and you have no idea who this guy is, it kind of put things into perspective, like, oh, okay, like he's obviously with them. It's not obvious enough. um but I think that the introduction of Tonga and getting the Gorillas of Destiny here in WWE, I think, and then having Solo Sikoa, the leader of the new bloodline, and then just the way that Paul Heyman is interacting and reacting in behind the scenes, right? And just the facial expressions and the fact that Heyman is scared for the direction of the new bloodline and scared with how Solo is acting and how Tonga, and he's pretty much in fear for what they're going to do to other people. And I think that that's taking it to a different sadistic level. And I think it's kind of freshening up what the bloodline needed to do as well. And the fact that Reigns is getting chance that we want Roman and thank you Roman. That still is going to stand out to me. The thank you Roman from Philly. um, but I think when Roman returns, it's going to be massive. It's going to be one for the books, and I think that the slow burn to that is going to be key. And I don't think it needs to be anytime soon. I could see maybe a Survivor Series type thing with the. Sorry, this is really bugging me, guys. With the direction of how they're adding more and more substance to the bloodline, I think that we could end up heading towards a big match at Survivor Series and then having Roman Reigns return, possibly have The Rock show up at Survivor Series, depending on the direction. Because I think it's just a matter of time as well, right? Until we get Jacob Fatu. But I think that we're on the long run with this, and this thing could play out for years too, which is just incredible. Um, but yeah, I like that he made his debut. It's kind of what you expected, right? For them to come in and save the match, but it didn't take away from the match itself. And I think the match was what it needed to be, and it really showcased Tama as well. But I want to see more like singles matches going forward, and just the viciousness showing from Tonga. Although it's pretty, you know, probable that we're going to get more of a tag team run with them, and then possibly having them take over the SmackDown division, tag team division rather, which is it's not really saying much, but I think you can really rejuvenate that. And I still wish they wouldn't have separated the divisions. I wish they would have kept the tag team champions floating from brand to brand, but it is what it is. Um, but and shout out to Orton as well, and Sim Reigns and Owens for what they did in the match. But I think this was a showcase for the bloodline. I was kind of nervous there once at one point with the momentum that Randy Orton was picking up, but Orton's a goat, man. Orton knows what he's doing, and just had the crowd in the palm of his hands too, which I think is just really really something cool to see, especially since we're on what year 22 with Orton now in WWE, which is fucking crazy. But we did get, of course, the crowning of new champions here as well on Backlash, which is no surprise. We had Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill dethroning Asuka and Kairi Sane to become our new tag team champions for the women's division. Um, it wasn't the prettiest of the matches, right? But I think it showcased just exactly what Jade can do. And dude, like the ending sequence when Cargill caught, I think it was Kyrie, right? Or was it Asuka? I'm pretty sure it was Kyrie. Let me go back in the minutes. Yeah, it had to be. That's what it was. Yeah, it was. Because I was confusing myself because at first I thought it was Jade. I was conflating. But yeah, so Cargill caught Kyrie Sane jumping off the top rope, twisted her into the Jade, and pretty much just like bodied her. Like I think Kyrie was like falling downwards. Jade hoisted her back up, flipped her over into the Jade, and just it was beautiful. It was a beautiful sequence. You gotta check it out, man, if you haven't seen it. But it was just effortless, and it just showcased the power. And I think this was a perfect tag team match for Belair and Jade to kind of start their run, and a team to start their run against. And I'd love to see them run it back too. I think they very easily could. Um, I think it was smart having Belair get the 3 count. I was surprised Asuka took the pin though. But I think it was smart having Belair do that because I think that's going to be a nice little callback. Whether if whether you want Jade to get a turn eventually on Belair or vice versa, I think you need kind of little moments to call back on. I think this would be it too. But Cargill, man, the power that she has is just unreal. And the fact that she's such a star already, like France was reacting to her like she's been in WWE for years. So that says a lot. And props to her too. You know what I mean? Like in WWE, obviously when you have the machine behind you, that does a lot for you, right? Like it's just a given. But what's not a given is the magnitude and the levels of it. yes, you can get a pretty good reaction, but this girl is like, she's treated like a star already, and she's reacted to like a star, which I just think it's so cool, and I love it, and I can't wait to see the run that they have and the story and the character that she's gonna build, and then the eventual turn. Because obviously, I've been saying since before WrestleMania this year, that's gonna be the WrestleMania 41 match, Jade versus Belair, and that's gonna be kick ass. So, and I think at the end too, I saw, I think it was, yeah, it was, I know it was Jade. She was saying, I think like I'm sorry or thank you or something to that effect to Belair, and Blair was like, "It's all right, don't worry about it" or something. So it's just cool, you know what I mean? Like you can tell they're friends, and you can tell that mutual respect and love is there. So shout out to them, and I'm very excited to see what they do going forward. And I, like I said, I hope they get a rematch too with Asuka and Kairi Sane. I even if it's just on SmackDown, I think it'd be really cool to see. All right, now that they got the heavy match out of the way, for them to run it back and just kind of work out some kinks or whatever that may have happened in the first match, I think it would make the second match even better. And obviously keep the same results, right? With the tag team champions remaining, or retaining rather at this point, and that being Cargill and Belair, which they gotta come up with a name. But yeah, moving on, and really quick, I'm not gonna get too much into this one, but we do obviously know, and we expected that Damian Priest would retain against Jey Uso, but the entrance that Jay got and the love and the visual, man, like it was just so fucking cool. And the fact that the fans were doing like the, you know, the waving thing and the hand thing with the lights on their phone, like it was just, it made it even cooler. So shout out to Jay and shout out to Priest, and I like the angle that they're doing with Priest getting pissed off that Judgment Day keeps interfering. And I think that's gonna be interesting to see if they use that as a catalyst to kind of turn Priest into keep, or into make him rather more of a babyface champion, or more of a tweener, and he just wants to prove himself, but he's still kind of like a piece of shit to some of like the good guys. But I think it's gonna be more like, it looks like they're slowly turning him, right? But then it's just kind of odd to me, because then you're gonna have Cody on SmackDown as your uber good guy champion, and then Damian Priest as well. Um, so I don't know if they're gonna try to turn Judgment Day, but with JD, man, you can't make JD McDonough a good guy right now. And Finn has just been such a good bad guy. You don't want to chew Finn either. And then of course there's Dom, which is, he's just a piece of shit too, right? So that doesn't really make sense. So we'll see. And I don't know if this is just gonna be a temporary thing until Rhea gets back. Um, But that's gonna a whole other topic too, right? Because she's gonna be a face automatically when she gets back. Like the reaction is gonna be insane. So we'll see. But it's really intriguing on what they're doing with Damian Priest and the little. I don't even know the fact that he wants to prove himself and prove to be a fighting champion, and prove that he can do it on his own. But obviously, I don't know. Like, you know, they were out there, right? You see them there. You're pissed off. So I don't know. It's just they got to be careful with it, because I think that they could really utilize and benefit from having a bad guy Priest right now, and just being a dominant, not Gunther level, but a dominant champion, and having a champion who's actually a bad guy but doesn't need to cheat to win. So I hope that's more of a route that they go, and not the, oh, like he's more of a good guy champion now. Because I just don't think we need that right now. We need more of a bad guy champion with how strong of a good guy Cody is on SmackDown. You just kind of need that influx, and especially with Gunther no longer being the IC champion, with it being Sami Zayn as well. So there's just too much good, too much good. We need more evil. But of course, that leads to our main event with Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles for the WWE Championship, and the fans just fucking ate this up. Like the entrance for Cody itself is next level. You just have to hear it if you didn't see it for yourself. Um, but the match itself was really good, and this, I think, was a good kind of like fuck you to a lot of the Cody doubters and the Cody haters, and the fans that think that Cody is just kind of like a mid in ring guy. he's not AJ Styles, right? Of course, and he was in there with AJ Styles, and AJ Styles, people say that he can make a broom look good, right? So there is that, but you there's a saying that you're only as good as your weakest link, right? So if AJ is phenomenal and Cody is mid, then that would bring just thinking, like normal thinking, that would mean that AJ would come down a peg, right? And it would be a maybe a good to pretty good match. But I think this was a great match. I think this was a great first defense for Cody. I think the fans and the atmosphere really added a lot to it. And maybe if it was in a different setting, maybe it wouldn't have been as good. But I think it was exactly what Cody needed. And I think with this one too, just like I was saying with the women's tag, I think that this is another match that they can easily run back, and I think they will, because I think they have the Saudi Arabia show coming up in like 3 weeks or so. So I think this is a match that they can easily run back at in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if they can get back to the level of greatness. I don't want to say greatness, but very goodness of what this match was. Um, but man, because it's hard to replicate it's such a good match, right? For a second time. Um, but there was just something with their chemistry, and I think this could be a good little mini series that they can go back and forth on. I guess very much easily see this being like a dark match after SmackDown. You know how they have the matches after the TV show airs. I can very much see Cody coming out to challenge AJ or vice versa, and then running this back and just kind of getting more and more reps under both of their belts rather with each other. Um, and I think this is good too with AJ's new character and AJ's kind of more badass approach. And I really like the video package that they put together with him and his new workout routine and how he pretty much just like revamped everything that he was doing training wise. That was really good. And dude, like a fucking beast. So shout out to AJ, and shout out to what he's been doing and the revamp that he did physically. And for still being so fucking phenomenal. What 40? How old is he? In his mid 40s. Um, and it's just crazy to think that he had such a long career prior to WWE. And it's pretty much just like he's had two careers in one when you think about it, which is just fucking crazy. So shout out to both of them. Oh, excuse me. And really quick before I wrap up here with this match, I will say as well, I like that it was a clean finish too. I like that there was no interference. Obviously, AJ's not with the OC anymore and they're doing their own thing. I think they're on NXT. Maybe I'm wrong with that. But I like that there was no interference. I like that there was no involvement, no nothing, no AJ trying to do some fuck shit. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I think this was just a good, solid match. So, and I was really happy with the ending. I really like that Cody hit his finisher, and that was the end of the match. So, shout out to them, and shout out to the guys. I think it's maybe even like almost a 30-minute match too. So, I thought I accidentally almost hit a button there for a filter, but yeah, and I was just gonna say the last thing. I think it was just a really good sign for Cody's run, his championship run going forward. But with that being said, we're gonna move over to the AEW side of things really quick. We do have a departure and a signing that we need to touch on, and the departure is one of Ethan Page. He no longer works for AEW. I believe he has his own promotion up in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just a shame, maybe if AEW's roster wasn't so stacked and so bloated, not in a bad sense, but just so heavy with talent, maybe he would have had more room to shine, but it was just not the right time. And maybe if he was around like towards like in the inception of AEW, maybe he would have had more opportunity just for TV time, right? And I even thought that what were they called? The made men or something. Him and Scorpio Sky, which I have no fucking idea where Scorpio Sky is. That dude, I don't, I just have no idea where he went. But Ethan Page is no longer with AEW, and I think he has since released like a little 2-minute video on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. But I have not watched it, so I'm not gonna comment to that. But I think he did release some type of statement. But the AEW did end up picking up a addition for their AEW, for their women's roster, that being Camille, which I think is a very good addition. I think WWE maybe missed out on scooping her up, but I think that AEW probably needed her a little bit more than WWE does right now. She's very good. She was in NWA. If you are not aware, she was the NWA Women's Champion. God, I think for like 2 years. Yeah, 812 days, which is just incredible. Fightful Select says Camille had been a free agent since January 1st, and she recently stated on Twitter that she has since been signed, or she had been signed since February, and that Fightful Select had learned that the former NWA Women's Champion was slated to join AEW and is under contract with the company. It's just odd wording there. um, but yeah, so shout out to her. Camille revealed that she had had talks with Shawn Michaels and WWE, which is where the speculation came from. So I'm surprised that they weren't able to work anything out. Maybe she wants to work more on the independent scene as well. Um, I don't know. I'm just kind of surprised by that. And hey, props to her though. If she wants to start off with AEW, maybe work there for 2 years or so, then go to WWE. I don't blame her because WWE's obviously always going to be there, right? And maybe there is something to kind of when you're first starting out to like give yourself still a little bit more freedom to kind of learn the ropes yourself and kind of get an idea of okay, like this is what I need to do. This is how I need to hustle to make a living and to kind of learn the ropes type thing. And then once you get more experience under your belt, then go to WWE. But yeah, I think it's still a very good scoop for AEW, and I think it's going to be key with how they present her as well. I hope that they don't bring her in and just make her just like one of those wrestlers who will have like a good match here or there, and then you just never see her again, or she moves over to ROH. But I can actually see her maybe even starting in Ring of Honor and having a really good series with Athena, and just kind of entertaining and kind of flourishing in that division, and then moving over into AEW proper, maybe 8 months from now. So that'd be cool. That'd be really cool. And I think, like I said, it's a really good signing for AEW. But with that being said, we're going to touch on the Dynamite rating, which of course is in response to Kenny Omega's return. I love what they did with the presentation of Kenny Omega. He had recently said on his Twitch stream that he really respected how Roman was presented as the guy and the star in WWE, and how it made him think of how he was presented, and reminded him of his time being the guy in Japan and how he was presented there. And I think that played into, or to me, it just stood out rather, and it showed on Dynamite this week, him just coming out and just really owning that segment. He looked like $1,000,000. The emotional story that he gave us about just how everything was almost taken away from him. He didn't know if he was even gonna, he was being able to live, 24 hours away, and just the story that we know, and that we, if whether it was on Dynamite or if you've been watching him like on Twitch and stuff, it's just really, it's this is the Kenny that I wanted years ago. This is the Kenny that I was really excited for, and that I was really excited to learn about. And I'd heard all this stuff about, the Kenny Omega New Japan, the cleaner, and all this shit, you know what I mean? And when AEW started, I was like, okay, bet, like, this is the guy that I've been dying to see. He's going to be on weekly TV. And we didn't really get much of who Kenny Omega is, right? Like, of course, we know he's phenomenal in the ring, one of the best ever, but I just feel like there was just something that wasn't there. And I think what we got on Wednesday was the start of that. And it makes me even more excited for when he is able to come back, because obviously him being attacked by the new elite and the gut shot with the chair by Jack Perry to Omega, that alone just meant so much and was so impactful. So I think what they're going to do going forward is really key, and it's going to be telling with how the story plays out and what they have in mind for it long term. And again, I will say that I was in the camp of being unsure about Okada being a heel right off the bat, but I'm here for it because the visual of him and him and Omega rather in the ring, just man, of course, Kenny Omega, the human being, right? As human, his health is most important, but man, I'm obviously right. It's a pretty good sign that we saw him in the ring and taking a shot to the gut, no less. Um, that's a good sign that he'll be back. But if we can get that in AEW, if and when, I think that's just going to be stellar. Whether that's Forbidden Door, if we can get it at that point or not, which I think that's going to be too soon, especially if he has to get surgery, which I'm not sure if that's legit or not. Like obviously, it's the possibility it was legit, but if it's still probable that he needs to get it, because if so, then that's of course going to delay things. But I think it's a good sign with seeing Kenny in the ring, seeing how good he looked, and seeing what he was able to entertain and be able to do in the ring. Um, that's a good sign. What's not a good sign, it was kind of sad, was the ratings for Dynamite, which came out at 703,000 viewers for TBS, according to our friend Wade Keller at PW Torch. The viewership was up from 683,000 viewers from the week prior. Dynamite finished with a .24 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, which was up from last week's .24, so slightly up there. Yeah, and I was just reading through here to see if they had any more competition. Tuesday, for full transparency and fairness, Tuesday night's NXT finished with 564,000 viewers and a .14 demo rating on USA Network. So obviously, they are still beating out NXT there, but I don't know, man. Like, I would kind of expect a little bit more from 703,000 with the impact of the week prior, right, with the Tony Khan angle, him going on NFL Network, the brace, and everything. And I will say, too, I think I forgot to mention at the beginning, I do like how they opened up the show. I do like how they had Tony Khan, which was, I mean, Tony Khan's never opened the show before, right? But I think it was done to show and to kind of follow up, right? Because if we got no update on Tony Khan or no nothing, I think that would be kind of weird, since we obviously have seen him on NFL Network and know he's doing shit with the draft, right? Like, how you just not going to address it on your show? So I can appreciate that. His office is great too, so shout out to him for that. But I liked how, even if it was corny or whatever, some people, I like the transition over. I like how Tony Khan was doing whatever's his spiel. I do wish he was more upset though. Like, I wish he was angry. I wish he was more heated. I wish he was more pissed off. And he was just kind of just happy go lucky. You know what I mean? And just sad that he wasn't able to be there. So I like the follow up there, but we need more. Like, if you need to be pissed off, dude. Like, this guy who you sent away, who cost you your top star in CM Punk, who made you fire CM Punk. Like, not him specifically, but was the catalyst to expediting that process. And he's been gone for 7-8 months, and you bring it back, and he does this to you on TV, and you're not mad. You're just there. So I don't know. Like, just be mad, bro. Okay, we wouldn't be mad too. But yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I think once they'll be back in the States, maybe we'll see something more from Tony. Not that I'm wanting him to be on TV or anything like that, but I just think we need a more pissed off Tony. Like, if we're gonna see him on a video clip or anything like that, or even just like a sit down backstage with Renee, that could be heavily edited and retook and things like that. I don't know. I just think that something more is needed there. So I hope that we see a little bit more just fire from Twin Khan, and that's it. Like, just a one and done thing. Like, now he's finally able to meet up with Renee and get his feelings out and express how he feels about everything. If he wants to talk about everything and address it, and have the Bucks interfere and do whatever, and have maybe Nick Jackson, like, grabbing the neck brace on Tony Khan, and then Matt Jackson walking into the camera and blocking the view, so you don't know exactly what happened. Just something, just something. But I really love what they did with Kenny Omega. I really love the presentation there. I'm really excited for what that means going forward. Um, that being said, I think we do have the viewership as well for Rampage, which is at 431,000, which was right after Dynamite, which was the week prior they drew 293,000, which was on Saturday. But I think that they were up against a lot on Saturday, and there's a lot of playoff games and stuff too. So there's a lot going on competition wise on TV. Um, but yeah, it's just not a great look, just statistically wise. But like I said, I just kind of go over that just to kind of get a mental visual for where they're at, just landscape wise, and what fans like, and just I mean, now we really don't need to with Twitter being so prominent and everything, and everyone having an opinion on everything. Um, but yeah, I think obviously that's going to be the main story going forward, the Omega storyline, Okada, the Elite, Jack Perry, things like that. But I really hope that they focus on Swerve too, and I like that they have his first opponent being Christian Cage. I think that's a solid lead in. I think that's going to be a great match. Or a good solid match, you know. For what is it, Double or Nothing coming up here in a month or so. So I think what you do with Swerve and that presentation there is going to be key. I'm very concerned with what they're going to be doing with the outcome of the international championship match with Roddy Strong versus Osprey. I'm still just bewildered that they're having Osprey go for one of the four, I think, four singles men titles and at the World Heavyweight Championship, and that be his number one focus. Um, and I think it'd be even different too if there was like a tournament, right? If it was like the Owen Hart tournament, right, that he was going after. Because I think they normally do that at this pay per view anyway. So if that was what he was going after instead of the international championship, that would be make more sense because that's a prestigious thing, that's an honorable thing. Owen Hart was who he was, right? So I could see him wanting to do that, and it's kind of King of the Ring esque. So you accomplish that, and kind of like a Gunther route, where you accomplish that to prove your dominance, and then you continue on from there. Because I would eat up a good month or two. So I don't know. I'm not really set on that, but Osprey seems like he's gonna be one of those characters where he just defies whatever you kind of put him in. He's gonna make it work, and he's going to and not make it work in a bad way, but where it would be even more for some people, like the presentation and the star power that he brings already is exuding the maybe mediocrity of a story that he could be being placed in. And it's still way too early to tell that too, but I wouldn't have gone that route, and I'm trying very hard to remain optimistic in that regard. But I just think that you took a detour when you didn't need to, for no reason at all. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you wanted him to be focused on something, you'd do something like the Owen Hart tournament, which I don't think, unless I missed it, we've even heard anything on. And I'm pretty certain that was the tournament that they would do leading into or Double or Nothing, if I'm not mistaken. But with that being said, that's pretty much the rundown that I wanted to go through here really quick before we start the week going forward. We have a stacked Monday Night Raw. They went over the lineup. I think it was on the pay per view itself on Backlash. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up here really quick before we lead off into the eve. No, sadly I cannot find the full rundown for Raw tomorrow night, but I do know we'll be getting Gunther versus Sheamus, so that's all I need to know. So sign me the fuck up for that. And I would be remiss if I signed off without saying CM Punk has been locked in WWE towers for about 24 hours now. Last update we had was about 4 hours ago. And my guy was still locked in the towers. Apparently, he was there or Saturday, right, to record the pre-show for Backlash, and he went to the gym afterwards to work out. It looks like, or when no, he went to the restroom, and when he came out of the restroom, everyone was gone, and he has since done a full workout. He's toured the building. You can follow on his Instagram live. He's toured the building. He looks like he may have taken a nap on a couch. Thankfully, they have randomly stocked refrigerators of sodas, waters, and things like that, little parfaits. So he will be fed and he will be hydrated. So that's good. Um, but they did in one fridge only have Coke, and we all know he's a Pepsi guy. So best wishes to him, and I hope you make it through. But I think it's hilarious that he has been locked in the WWE building 4 hours. Looks like possibly overnight. No one is able to get him out. He did mention in one video clip some employees access to the gym on the weekend, but there's a key fob that you need to use to get out. And he's at one point he was concerned that if he wasn't there when the door were to shut, that he would be locked out of the gym. And who knows what would happen at that point. But I definitely recommend checking out his page. At one point he shows that he has some bedhead hair as well, so it's worth checking out. Only Punk, man. Only fucking CM Punk would get stuck in WWE towers. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. We'll be back sometime this week, just to follow up on everything and to follow up on the crazy world that is wrestling. But thank you guys for checking out the show. I really appreciate it. And just stay safe, guys, and enjoy wrestling.